Chapter 3, Rigorous and Burdensome. The rigorous and burdensome character of the Sabbath considered. Mr. Ward says that the seventh-day Sabbath was a rigorous Sabbath. They were to be stoned to death who broke it. I answer, the law of stoning is added afterwards. This law is not written on tables of stone, nor found among the Ten Commandments. Exodus 20. This is more plain from Numbers 15, verse 34. They put the Sabbath breaker in ward, for it was not declared what should be done unto him. So you may see that the law of stoning was no part of the Ten Commandments. But what a strange thing this is, Mr. Ward, that you should count it a dangerous opinion to hold that the Sabbath is in force because of the penalty. Suppose it to be so, the same may be said of the rest of the commandments. For instance, the first commandment is, thou shalt have no other God before me. He that worshipped a strange God was to be put to death. Now, shall we not own this commandment, because the breaker of it was so punished? Again, the fifth commandment is, honor your father and your mother. But he that curseth his father or his mother was to be put to death. Now, shall we not honor father and mother? And shall we break this commandment, because this punishment belongs to the breakers of it? Again, he that sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. Now is there any danger in the owning of this commandment? Thou shalt do no murder, because the punishment is in force? Adultery also is to be punished. Deuteronomy 22:21. Now will you say that these commandments belong not to us? So that this objection is of no weight or use at all, except it to be to affright people, lest they should look into the truth? This stoning is an additional law, as I said before. It was added afterwards because of transgression. Knowing this, said the apostle in 1 Timothy 1:9, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for the sinners, and for unholy and profane, for murderers or fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers, for whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for men stealers, liars, and for perjured persons. Mr. Ward says that the seventh-day Sabbath was a burdensome Sabbath. What is the matter, sir, that you complain of the Lord's holy Sabbath? Oh, say you, it is to be kept from even to even, and that is too long a time for the Sabbath. Men do not complain of whole days for the world and their pleasures. They rise early and go to bed late and eat the bread of carefulness. They do not say all the week when the morning comes, would God it were evening, but rather in the evening they say, would it were mornings again, to go after the world afresh. Yea, we find some even in sinful ways and pleasures so unwearied, that when one day is past, they will pitch upon the next day with enlarged resolutions. Come ye, say they, I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall we be as this day, and much more abundant. Isaiah 56:12. Some think that the Sabbath ceases when the public exercises end. But if so, then some Sabbaths are very short. Shall we think that men can begin and end a Sabbath when they list? The Church of God in ages past have determined an entire day to be due to the Lord of the Sabbath, and the consecration of that whole day to the Lord's service. Austin declares his judgment touching the time of the Sabbath from that text. From even to evening shall you celebrate your Sabbath. It is evident from the place of the apostle, James 2:10, that whosoever carelessly casts by any one of God's precepts transgresses the whole law of God, and whosoever willfully neglects any part of God's Sabbath is guilty of breaking the holy day. Men should not suit the day to their duties, but their duties to the day. While the day endures, their duty remains. But you say that so to keep a whole day is tiring, a hard service. Who can do it? I answer that God, because of our infirmities, does afford what may refresh. The better to bear up our bodies, he allows us moderate sleep in the night and temperate food in the day. True, it was in Tertullian's time a dispute whether it be not a duty of the Lord's day to fast, but Christ's apology for his disciples in plucking the ears of corn and eating them on the Sabbath day may easily quiet this question. Mark 2:26. And blessed be the Lord for this exhibition of his love. But see what some of God's servants have desired. For instance, David, that good servant of God, who said in Psalm 27:4, one thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. As if he should wish it were always Sabbath day with him. In Psalm 84:4-10, he says, blessed are they that dwell in thy house, for a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. Were men of David's mind, one day in the week for the service of God would not be too long. There have been persons who have spent many nights and days in the service of God. See a considerable instance in Luke 2:37, a widow of about 84 years, which departed not from the temple, but served God with fasting and prayer night and day. What will such do as are tired out with the time of the Sabbath? Should they go to heaven? There it is, ever Sabbath, always serving of God. Bernard urges the observation of the Sabbath and holding out in holy exercises thereon, upon this account, that by present rest men may learn to live in rest eternal, and by persevering service men may be prompt to perpetuate the Lord's everlasting praise. But how would men endure heaven and a never-ending Sabbath there, who love not to keep a Sabbath here on earth?